In the studio is Lila Jacinto from the France 24 Internet Desk. Lila, hello, as well as our International Affairs Editor, Armin George. And Armin, hello. Lila, let me start with you. You've just returned from Turkey, where you met with some of the victims of the purge we were just hearing about. How has that affected the outcome, do you think?
Well, if you just look at the numbers, there are 130,000 people who were suspended or fired from their jobs, around 90,000 detained. You can be sure that these people and their families have not voted for this referendum. And, you know, we were in Turkey to do a special web doc on the victims, as you said, and one of the profiles that we did was very interesting. This man was an Islamist, he's a doctor, and a very prominent human rights campaigner. He actually stood for a local election on an AK party list, and he has since fallen out of favor with the AK party, with the ruling party, because you know, he feels that it hasn't kept up to its democratic credentials. Now, he told me that, you know, within the Islamist camp, there are Islamists. This is really the core of Erdogan supporters who are disenchanted with him, which is why we are seeing these reduced numbers. Erdogan has had spectacular victories in the past, but it must be said that, you know, so within the Islamist camps, we can assume that the Gulenists would not support Erdogan anymore. But Turkey also has a number of other Islamist tariqas or brotherhoods, and some of these are actually gaining ground now and are supporting Erdogan. So it's not true that he's lost the Islamist vote. But definitely, you know, the purge's victims, we are seeing these in these figures, an extremely razor-thin majority win for Erdogan.
And Armin, there's a clear geographical divide between the yes and no vote. Tell us about it.
Well, it's quite predictable, actually. I mean, you've got the coastal areas, the coastal areas, particularly the western coast, which is more European, more liberal, more secular. You had the city of Izmir, which was overwhelmingly no to this reform. That's not surprising. Istanbul, also a European cosmopolitan city, that went for no as well, quite clearly. Ankara, the capital, also was no. And then, again, sort of quite predictably, the central provinces and the central northern ones, which are, you know, the bastions of support for the AKP, were some very high numbers. The highest was 80% for the yes. And of course, you know, Erdogan used this rhetoric with those supporters during this campaign. He used the rhetoric that, you know, I'm the person who basically liberated you from these you know, cosmopolitan coastal elites, and I gave you back your dignity as conservative Muslim pious voters. And he used that same rhetoric, which has helped the AK to be such a successful election machine since 2002.
That's right. You travelled to Diyarbakir. Is that what you saw there?
Well, the southeast, these are the Kurdish majority areas. They are definitely in the no camp. You know, I was in Diyarbakir. It's, you know, it's called the de facto capital of the Kurds. This city is very heavily affected by the fighting with the PKK. Some parts of it really look like what it used to in the 1990s. There is this historic district of Sur with a lot of heritage structures that has been totally destroyed. I was there, incidentally, when Erdogan had a rally, a yes rally, and all the residents of the city were telling me to take note of the cars. You know, the registration plates showed that people came in from outside. So Diyarbakir has voted no, but Erdogan still has supporters among the Kurds, and some of the people that I interviewed have actually benefited from what's happening in Diyarbakir. You know, there's parts of this historic district that has been leveled, and some AKP supporters are getting allocations of shops and plots. So the AKP is basically following its usual strategy, buying some votes, rewarding its supporters. But overwhelmingly, Turkey's Kurds have said no to change in the constitution.
And that's brought out in any election map that you look at of the results tonight.
Well, broadening that map now and looking at relations with Europe. Europe was dragged into this campaign with controversy over cancelled rallies. Where does it leave relations between Turkey and Europe?
Well, obviously very tense, because, I mean, we remember the spat between the Netherlands and Erdogan when he accused the Dutch of being Nazi remnants because his foreign minister wasn't allowed to campaign for the yes vote in the Netherlands. And of course, that shows you just how far the two camps have moved apart in terms of Europe believing that Turkey doesn't share European values anymore in a very fundamental way. And I interviewed just a couple of days ago the head of the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission, who said effectively, a country that stops being a rule of law state cannot join the European Union. Let's take a listen now to Elmar Brok.
Someone who does not follow the principles of the European Union, the political, judicial principles, the values, cannot become a member of the European Union because he does not fulfill the Copenhagen criteria. That is also one of the reasons why these negotiations were so delicate and so slowly. But now we see that Erdogan is moving again in the other direction against such principles, which is make it less probable that Turkey can join the European Union.
Now, of course, the conflict in neighbouring Syria and its consequences for Turkey and for Europe are also a key issue. How much of an influence did that have on today's vote, do you think, Leila?
Well, in the sense that, yes, Turkey is a country straddling Asia and Europe, and Erdogan has definitely taken the country facing east. In terms of how this has influenced Erdogan, for one, it has somehow convinced his base that he is a strong leader, that the impact of the war in Syria, which has seen a number of terrorist attacks by the Islamic State group, that somehow he is the answer to these problems, that Turkey requires a strong leader in order to cope with these problems. Secondly, we have a lot of Syrian refugees in Turkey, around 4 million Syrian refugees. Some of these have been in the country for more than 5 years, so they are eligible for Turkish citizenship. This is a base of people who are very pro-Erdogan. So looking into the future, that is a pro-Erdogan vote. But definitely, right now it's on the next step, and Syria is at its border, and that problem is not going anywhere.
Yeah, so that's a pro-Erdogan vote. And meanwhile, just to come back to what you said at the beginning, that's at the other end of the spectrum, all those who've been arrested, detained, lost their jobs. Obviously, many of them were not even able to vote at all in the referendum.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Leila Jacinto and Armin Georgian. Well, for more, we can cross now to